And welcome back to the Space Traveler's Guide to, well, really old content at this point. Today we're taking a look at heroic Blackrock Caverns. This footage is actually from about a month ago, where our good friend Gynji decided he thought he could PvE heal, with, well, enough success to get us through the instance. Taking a look here at the first trash pull, it's a couple of Twilight Flame Callers. It's going to be a good amount of AoE damage that goes out from their little fire channeling magma nonsense spell. The real meat of this trash here is coming up on this next pull. You see the Twilight Torturers, the big ogre dudes, and then there's also a couple of smaller caster type mobs. Twilight Mage or Crazed Mage, I apologize. And something else too. This was actually a full guild run. Seeing it from the perspective of Soul, my shaman, warrior tank, paladin healer, myself as a shaman, a mage, and a feral druid DPSing. Twilight Sadist, that's the name of the other mob. You can see he interjects himself into the party here. Nothing really special about this trash, to be completely honest. You just want to make sure that you have it pulled back far enough that you don't accidentally aggro the boss. Footage you're not going to see here because, well, I cut it out for Genji's pride's sake. Our initial pull on this, the second bit of trash that's up there by the fires, we actually managed to pull the boss because we didn't pull the casters back far enough. Regardless, here's our look at the first boss, Ramag's Skull Crusher. He has two main abilities that you have to be aware of. The first, he casts a Quake spell periodically throughout the fight. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to do a small amount of AoE damage to the entire group. More importantly, what it's going to do is it's going to spawn little adds called Angered Earth at the point where each group member is standing. Now you see here the second ability has kind of used in conjunction. It's called Chains of Woe. And it's essential that you break the chains and run the hell away as quickly as possible because of his follow-up ability, the Skullcracker, which, if your tank is overgearing the dungeon, may not kill him. It will definitely kill anyone else, however, so usually best to just let everyone get the hell out. As you can see there, our druid, Badass Voodoo, I believe, is the one who came on this run. Did get caught in the Skullcracker, and as a result we four-manned the second half of this boss. Anyway, you also want to make sure when you're running away not to run into more mobs. He does Chains of Woe at 66 and 33%, and I believe Quake is just on a timer. You just want to watch your boss mods for that. Or watch for the little circle-y pulse thing that he does, because that's the indicator that he's casting Quake. Anyway, if you kill the chains, manage the adds, he's pretty easy actually. And now moving on, skipped out a couple of trash pulls here to move on to the more important mob, the Evolved Twilight Zealot. He has two main abilities. The first is called Gravity Strike. This should only be affecting your tank, but if you have any dumb melee or loose melee that happen to be accidentally standing in front of him, they'll hit them too, and it will hit. It hits for 50% of your health, regardless of armor, class. It can be mitigated by things like Shamanistic Rage, Divine Protection, etc. The other ability they have is called Shadow Strike. This can seriously hurt even a pretty overgeared tank, so you want to make sure to interrupt that every time. Now moving on here, just a quick little trash pull. These regular non-evolved Twilight Zealots, they're nothing special. They're basically arcane mages, only not as cool. And they sometimes cast Shadow Bolt, just to spice things up or something. But mostly you'll see them casting Arcane Missiles, Arcane Blast, things like that. Then there's another Zealot that has to be killed, but I think I cut that out. I did. So now we're moving on to our second attempt here on Corla, the second boss here in Blackrock Caverns. You see there she has 3 Twilight Zealots kind of guarding her. The main thing you have to worry about on her is having folks in place to interrupt the beams that she that will channel into these Zealots. If they're allowed to get 100 stacks of evolution, is what the debuff's called, they'll evolve into one of the evolved Twilight Zealots, and then they'll start to wreck your group, especially if multiple Zealots evolve. And now therein lies the trick to this fight. If your people standing in the way of the beams let it get up to 100 stacks, they'll be mind-controlled, turned into evolved Twilight Zealots, and still wreck your group. Usually your boss mods will start yelling at you at about 74 to 78 stacks, giving you plenty of time to get out. The main thing is to watch your debuffs so that you don't move back in too soon. That's actually what caused our first wipe here, is that Gynji was a little too over-enthusiastic getting back into his beam and caused a Zealot to evolve. The only other ability you really have to worry about with Corla, she does cast a Dark Command, which is a AoE fear. Can and should be interrupted. It can be handled by anyone with a 10-second interrupt, so about half the classes in the game should be able to handle that. Ideally an Enhancement Shaman, just because we only have a 5-second interrupt. See, their Deadly Boss mods actually yells at you at 80 stacks. I know Bigwigs will yell at you at 74. So it just kind of depends on what your boss mod is to when it'll yell at you to get the hell out of the beam. Whether it be to switch off, as you can see, since we had melee heavy group, it was we had to have Gynji, our healer, in a beam, and then our mage in a beam, and then me and Gadrin, our tank, were just switching on and off. And that's ideal with the middle beam, then you don't have to worry about anyone moving back in too soon. I don't know why I popped Fire Ellie right there, but apparently it was a good idea. Because as you can see here, with one last interrupt, we kill the boss and get to move on. A little late Zealot popping is not necessarily a bad thing.